Hello, Ray. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have a very interesting guest with very unique experience that is very valuable for real estate. So we are here to learn a lot from you. I know you've been in the appraisal industry, in commercial appraisal for 9 years or more, and then you transitioned that to become a real estate broker, commercial real estate broker. And so we definitely want to hear what you are doing, what are your niches, what your real estate journey has been. So why don't we start with you introducing yourself and letting us know or telling us your real estate journey so
Sure.
far.
Thank you so much for having me today, David. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you and your audience. Rae Nomura, I'm a commercial real estate broker over at SV in Embry. I started my path in commercial real estate on the appraisal side. I was a appraiser and achieved my MAI, worked in that realm for about 9 years, averaged about 75 appraisals a year, which is a property almost every 3 workdays. And got bored and burnt out, and then coming out of COVID made the jump from being an appraiser to being a broker. So I've been a broker now for 4.5 years, got my CCIM designation, work a lot on the buy side. I love working with buyers, particularly 1031 exchange buyers, and helping them understand what might be the next best investment for them. So somebody that maybe needs a little bit of handholding or a little bit further explanation on different property types, different leasehold scenarios, help walk somebody through that process of finding their next best investment. Um,
Amazing.
I, I work a lot in the retail sector. Retail is my love. Also happy to work in multifamily, mixed use kind of office that operates like retail, freestanding dental clinics, that sort of thing. A little bit of development, land play, but retail is truly where I love rolling up my sleeves and digging into leases and looking for the most amazing site or opportunities that maybe just need a little extra shine.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about retail, right? Because I don't think a lot of people know how the retail works. So
Sure.
uh, what do you mean by retail investing in commercial real estate?
Yeah. So when you're buying a retail lease, you're buying a leased investment typically. So you're buying a property that already has leases in place with those tenants, and then you are assuming the new leaseor position. And those leases could, let's take, say, a 3 tenant retail shopping center, for instance. You could have a lease for 3 years, 5 years, and 7 years when you purchase it. And those tenants will also have options to extend, which is noteworthy because the lease will state the exact rental rate that that tenant is paying. It also states what sort of expenses they pay. A lot of times in retail, we hope that a tenant is on a triple net lease where they're reimbursing their percentage share of taxes, insurance, common area maintenance, usually everything associated with maintaining that property except for the roof and sometimes the HVAC. If those are included, that's an absolute net lease, and they are more standard in a single tenant scenario. But if you're looking at a retail investment, you want to dig in and see where that market rental rate is, where the tenant's rental rate is, what it is that they're paying, and then what the future of that tenant looks like. So it'll say maybe we're going to have 3% annual escalations in the rent clause for those tenants. And then they have 2 5-year options to renew. And that renewal rate could be at market, it could be at a 10% bump at each renewal rate, or it could continue to maybe be 3% annual escalations. But digging into those leases and understanding exactly what the future holds for that tenant in that center is vitally important. Last thing you want to do is end up in a center where the tenant's severely below market and they're in that position for the next 20 years, right? Or the opposite. You could end up in a situation where a tenant has a very, very high rent rate and they're above market. So when their option to renew comes up, they're looking to go elsewhere or renegotiate at a significantly lower rental rate, which impacts your return that you thought you were getting when you purchased the property. Um, so I love retail because there's so many different scenarios and caveats that you can dig into. You can dig into the strength of the tenant. So is it a corporate tenant backed by millions of dollars and they're never going anywhere, that can be great. Is it also maybe a local tenant, say a hair salon or a nail salon, and that's that person's livelihood, and they aren't putting food on their table unless they pay you rent and show up every day and run a business? I think there's a lot to be said for that sort of scenario as well. So it's just getting everybody comfortable with you know, what they enjoy, what they look for. And I think that's the other sort of fascinating thing about matching investors with the right retail property is everyone has their own idiosyncrasies on what they think is successful or what they think would be a good investment. Some people hate Chipotle or they hate a flat roof or I don't know. There's a variety of different scenarios. So really trying to listen to my clients and see what their fears are or what they're really excited about.
Very cool. So I know retail and like necessary driven commercial assets in the Northwest have shown, and you told me that, but it has shown a unique resilience. What asset subtypes or tenant mixes are currently showing like the strongest fundamentals in your market?
Yeah, retail's been doing well. Everybody said retail is dead for the last couple decades. I feel like that was the message. E-commerce is coming, retail is dying. COVID came, retail is dying. I think a lot of the poorly designed retail got cleaned up and converted or demoed. But we are in a situation right now where the cost to build new retail is higher than to purchase existing retail, and it is not. It just doesn't make economic sense to go build new retail right now. Your rental rate would be so high that it would not work out for the most part
Mhm.
in order to make that pencil. So we're in a situation where we have limited supply. We still have good demand. The businesses and the retailers that were going to fail have, for the most part, failed in the last 5 years, right? If you couldn't figure out how to make the e-commerce jump and COVID jump, then you're out. You haven't survived. So if you did survive those, you're doing pretty well, and I think there's good faith that you're there. And then retail's always constantly reinventing. In fact, one of the new stats that came out recently here was movie theaters, which everybody thought was dead, right? It's like, oh my God, movie theaters are a thing of the past. You'll never go to them again. But in reality, 2018, 2019 were some of the highest grossing years for movie theaters, and then COVID hit, and understandably there was a giant step back for the movie industry, both in making movies of quality. AI entered the platform, and it was just a dead space in most retail centers. But this year we're up, I think it's like 16%. We're back to almost 2019 levels. And there's been a huge resurgence for movie theaters and the experience. And so, I think it's quality over quantity. I don't think we're going to necessarily see a bunch of new movie theaters being built,
Mhm.
but it is really interesting that that trend is coming back into play and that people are willing to go have a really fun experience, maybe in a nice movie theater where they can have a cocktail. And instead of the, hey, I was in and out for $25, we're talking about $120 evening of the movies, right? Or visiting the adjacent restaurant and really extending your time at that shopping center. Um, and I think that's really exciting. So I'm always careful when people say retail is dead because it keeps recreating. Same thing. Olive Gardens are making a comeback, which I would have guessed that that was a dying brand. But Olive Garden has been rapidly expanding, signing some new leases, particularly like in Texas and along the South, because they offer a price point and a target that sits really well in the current economy. Free breadsticks, endless salad. You can have a fun date night for a reasonable dollar amount. So they're seeing success again. And so I think that's kind of a beautiful thing about retail. Is and the key thing if you're looking at retail is, as with most things, location, location, location. So if
Mhm.
you are a retail zoned parcel on a corner with phenomenal access and great exposure, you can't replicate that. That's always going to be an amazing retail corner. And so you might have your valleys of valleys and mountains of profit where things are really good years, and sometimes you have some tenant rollover and you've got to reinvest in your property, but you'll never be able to replicate that corner.
Yes. No, that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, like it that's what we're seeing as well, right? Like people are valuing and appreciating much more the experience than the actual product, right? So like before it was just, oh, there's a great movie, I'm gonna go see it. It didn't really matter what the theater looked like. You just wanted to go see it. But now it's more about the experience because you can actually see it anywhere now in your home. But like if the experience is like going to like a nice meal in like a luxury place and where you can actually go and socialize, you're willing to pay way more, as well as, like going to restaurants because it's,
Yes.
it's about the experience. So yeah, that's great about
Yeah,
retail.
it's a shift, and a good thing I try to keep in mind. I had a client tell me was if I can buy it on Amazon, I don't want it in my retail center, right? Which makes sense. If I agree, if
Yes.
I can buy it on Amazon, it's going to be here in 2 hours. I'm not driving down any. I'm not even driving to the corner store to go pick it up. So, it's just a change in mindset. But
Yeah. Well, especially now with like AI and robotics that are coming online as well, everything is going to be produced so cheaply that if you can get it shipped or you can like see it in mass volumes, it's not interesting anymore. And like now you have to like tailor it to actually the experience so people actually go out and enjoy it. Eh, Um,
yeah, you got to work a little bit harder for success. I
yes.
think, right? But
Yeah.
I love that. I'm always up for the
No, that's
challenge.
great. I mean, and that's also part of like how technology and AI is changing the industry, right? Because it can actually help you automate the pieces that are like mundane and
Yeah.
administrative, but then it also can help you strategize how to become unique, because then you can like AI thinks outside the box. So like if you know how to use it, you can actually come up with like amazing strategies that differentiate yourself.
Yes, agreed. It's a tool, right? And it can only make us more productive if you're using it properly.
Yes. So that brings me to that question. How do you see AI transforming the industry and how are you using it?
Oh, every day, right? Every day I see a little bit more, and every day I'm trying to use a little bit more. Um, In fact, Crexy is one of these platforms out there that we use for commercial real estate where, similar to an RMLS system, everybody will post their properties that are available on there. And I just had a walkthrough yesterday where their AI is now letting me go in and search. So I have a client currently looking for Texas roadhouses, and I was able to put that into the AI and say, instead of me going through and searching for Texas roadhouses within the platform, I just said, give me all of these. And it just sent out a list. And so now I have my call list to make sure, see if any are available, see if there's anything worthwhile putting in front of my buyer. But that has to have saved me at least an hour. Um, and, I use chat to bounce ideas back and forth. Um, I work primarily by myself. I'm in an office with a lot of people, but I work from home most of the time. And so just that sounding board of, hey, I'm thinking this or I'm thinking this rabbit hole or,
Hmm.
how does this make sense? I use it for that. I've started to learn to embrace Claude for Excels. I've built out my own sort of models so that I can quickly run numbers for clients if we're looking at a property and generate a 10-year IRR, internal rate of return, for what that property is going to look like. So we could model it as escalations I was talking about earlier, uh, sort of factor in some risk levels.
Hmm.
So now that I have that created, I'm able to utilize Claude and quickly pivot from one property to another.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I know a lot of people have been introduced to chat, right? Like, that's like the first level, but are you using agentic AI at all in your business? Like
What,
agents,
um,
like AI agents?
like something built out where then it would go do all the work for me.
Pretty much, yeah. So like, like
Uh,
now in
yeah.
a business, you can actually have digital employees pretty much that are working 24/7 for you. And so They can do your marketing, they can do your lead generation, they can do many things that you don't really want to be doing. And that's where agentic AI comes into place. Have you explored that? Like Claude has co-work, and Claude code as well that can help you create all the agents. But I don't know if you've had a chance to explore that.
No, not really. I need to because I know that I'm starting to miss out, right? And it's like every day you wait, the AI keeps getting a little bit further ahead of you. But no,
It is, and
it's on my list.
it is, and I mean, like, and it's not just for keeping up, right? I mean, obviously, it's important to keep up, but also just because it makes it so much fun to do what you're doing, because then
Right.
it takes off your plate the things that you don't want to be doing, so you can actually be energized every day and actually focus on what you want, and have these agents do the stuff that you don't want to be doing. And like it sends you like a text message or an email, like an employee, and being like, hey, review this draft. And you're like, okay, approve. And then it sends it, or it performs the task. So it's very interesting how that will work. And I think it's been documented now that there is like multi-million-dollar businesses with one person or two persons, right? That because you have
Crazy.
agents that are
Yeah.
doing everything for you.
That's a good share of the profits.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Now, what is next for you? Like, what is your plan for the next 5 years? And what is keeping you from getting there?
Uh, yeah, it's commercial real estate, I think, is so interesting, right? Because every day you wake up and it's a new day. And you never quite know. You can have a plan, but you never quite know what's going to hit your inbox or who's going to call. And that could take you into a completely different day. And it's great and it's exciting and fun. But it does make it a little bit hard to plan sometimes. Right now, I am just really building my snowball. I have some great clients that I'm now starting to do some repeat business with. And so nurturing those relationships, putting them in front of other potential clients that, may or may not actually transact. Um, Really building out my clientele and my snowball to be a bigger. I always say I want to take my snowball and make it into a snowman, right? So that's the 5-year plan. Um, but I get a lot of my referrals from lender clients, 1031 exchange accommodators, other partners in the industry. And so I also try to be very active on LinkedIn, where we connected, sharing data and information and connecting across the nation. I think that is really vital, not just to my own personal network, but to any client, anybody that I'm working with, having the right connection so that I can refer my clients to the right insurance agent or property manager, or, hey, we need a roof. I know the top 3 people that we should go get bids from, and they know me. And so we're going to get a bid returned in a couple days. Um, I really believe that having solid relationships, both on a local level and on a nationwide level, through platforms like LinkedIn, is crucial to continuing to build my business out for the next 5 years and play in the realm that I want to be playing in, with those 1031 exchange buyers, with the retail investors, and more of I don't want to say mom and pop, but somebody who actually wants to have a conversation and bounce ideas back and forth from each other. I always say I never want to be the paper pusher between attorneys. That's great for other brokers, but that just doesn't sound like fun for me. I want to hear about my clients' grandkids and what their goals are and where they went on vacation, and
Right.
really building those relationships and referral partners. Um,
So look, I think that's what it's going to be important in the future. Just how you connect with your clients and what is the value proposition that you bring as a human, as a person, because
right. So
they'll
they can
actually
do the
want to deal with people that they trust, right? So how do you position yourself in a way that you're trustworthy and people want to spend time with you?
Yeah, I agree. The jobs that people are so afraid of AI taking over, I think, are the ones that lack any sort of personal interconnection. Um,
Mhm.
You could have AI write up a contract or dig into some due diligence, but they're not going to tell you your gut feeling.
Yes, absolutely. Now, so yeah, I mean, like obviously in a business, right? Like lead generation is one of them, and like your marketing and positioning yourself digitally, correctly, so that they reach out to you. Those are like tasks that you would want to automate or improve. Like any business, right? Like those are tasks that you will always want to improve. But also, it looks like one of the niches that you are talking to or talking about is the 1031 exchange. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So your audience may or may not be familiar with 1031 exchanges, but it is one of the biggest fuels for commercial real estate. If you have an investment property and you go to sell that property, you 9 times out of 10 are going to be subject to capital gains tax on what you've earned on that property since you've owned it. So what a lot of times an investor will do is they will do a 1031 exchange where they sell that property within 45 days of closing on their down leg. They have to identify up to 3 properties that they might exchange into and then transact on one of those properties or multiple properties within 180 days. And that's the pretty basic version of that. There's a few caveats where you can identify up to 6 properties and 200% of the value that you're selling. And there's a few ways you can kind of wiggle around. Or you could take 2 properties. I have somebody right now, they're selling a $1.5 million residence that closed a few days ago. And they have another $625,000 residence that is in contract. And so they're hoping to take both of those assets and roll them into one bigger commercial real estate investment. And not pay capital gains and keep kind of kicking that can down the road. So it's a phenomenal tool. It really makes commercial real estate go round and round. But there are rules, and the biggest piece of advice I could ever give someone on 1031 exchange is plan ahead and know that it's possible, but be flexible. So, I have had people wait until the 45th day to identify, and we have not written a single offer on what we're identifying. And we were successful, right? The 45th day, we turned in 3 offers, and within a week, we tied up 2 of those options, and we actually transacted on one. A little nerve-wracking, but it was her entire retirement. So high stakes, but it ended up working out, and she's thrilled and has a great passive investment and doesn't think about it. But my ideal scenario would be somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to put this on the market and I'm pricing it. I want to start looking at what I might be exchanging into and noting that you're probably not going to be writing offers on anything until what you're selling is under contract and very far along and maybe even closing. But let's start looking at the market, because most investors aren't familiar with current market situations. They buy something maybe every 5 years and they don't know what the expectations of the market are. And so if I can get you up to speed with here's a variety of options, here's where cap rates are, here's what's happening in transactions, we can do all of that hard work before we're in this boiling pot situation of the exchange.
Makes sense. That's very valuable. So yeah, like working with somebody that knows the ins and outs of 1031 exchange, but also that can help you find those investments. That's priceless. So that's great.
Yeah. And people get, something like 40% of exchanges fail. And it's
Wow.
just
That's pretty
timing
high.
and not actually making it happen. But it's very doable. And there is another myth out there that exchange buyers always overpay. You'll hear that again and again.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's true. I think that there's always opportunity. And if you set yourself up with enough advance and you have a little bit of flexibility on what you might be interested in, you don't have to overpay. We can get you in a really great situation where you feel comfortable about what you're purchasing and you don't just feel like you had to do that instead of paying capital gains. I would never want somebody to feel like they had to purchase something. I want you to be excited. Commercial real estate should be fun, right? in my mind. That's why we're in this. And you are
Yes,
in a situation where you're lucky enough to be able to continue to roll your investments and enjoy them and plan for the future. But that should be a fun process.
agree. Well, this is great. Ray, how can people work with you? Who is your ideal client, and how can they reach out to you? And I'm gonna obviously gonna put your contact information in the show notes and in LinkedIn. But who's your ideal client?
Sure. So I am based in Portland, Oregon market. I'm licensed in Oregon and Washington, but because I'm part of SVN, I have the ability to work nationwide. I was able to tie up a property in Indiana with our office there. I have a listing in Arizona right now. I don't pretend to stay up to date on every single thing that's happening in those markets. I do stay very up to date on Oregon and Washington, south of Seattle area. But if I can't help you, I am more than happy to refer you to somebody that I think would be a great partner too. So always feel free to reach out and see what we can do. And so nationwide, but really focusing on the Pacific Northwest. Retail, multifamily, in some sort of investment sale, so something with a leasehold situation is the ideal scenario. And I'm always happy to take a listing too if it's the right fit. And reach out to me any way. You're always welcome to give me a ring on my phone. I love answering the phone and chatting. Happy to respond to an email, and I'm very active on LinkedIn.
That's great. Thank you, Ray, for all the insights. This was very valuable. One last question. If you think of a theme song for yourself or your business, what do you think that would be?
um, so I guess the first song that pops into my head is "Don't Worry, Be Happy," which is a weird one left over from the '80s, right? My dad used to sing that song to me as a kid, and I have little kids, and so it's probably why it's top of mind. Um, but that's how I like to live my life, right? Don't worry, be happy. It's going to work out. It's going to be fun, and we're going to get a deal across the finish line.
I love it. Thank you, Ray. I love that song too. Yes, it's a great one.
It's a good one.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, David. This has been great.
Thank you, Ray. Likewise. We'll talk to you soon.